I felt like we were stalled. So I told my girlfriend, I was like, listen, unless I don't, well, I didn't even say unless. I was just like, I think I'm done racing. I said, I think this is it, my 2023. So I ran my last race in 2023 and thought that was it.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Checkered Roots. My name is X-EskridgeRacing, and thank you guys so much for joining us. Tonight, we have I think, a really cool interview and a podcast coming to you. We're going to have a guy who has ran in the Truck Series, who has ran in the Xfinity Series, kind of does a little bit of everything. So, without further ado, let's introduce Mr. Tyler Tomassi. Tyler, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing good tonight. How about yourself?
Doing good, man. Kind of had to rush home from work. I don't know about you, but it's been wicked hot here in the Midwest in Kansas City. So today we're working out in the sun, but glad to be here sitting with you, man.
Yep.
Um, well, let's go. Let's kind of get into this, man. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you? You know, what your name is, where you're from, what you race, and yeah, just kind of give us a little brief overview here.
Yeah, so my name's Tyler Tomassi. Racing part-time in trucks, Xfinity, and didn't run any ARCA this year, but ARCA sometimes. 22 years old. Um, Live in West Greenwich, Rhode Island, not West Greenwich, Connecticut, even though Fox thinks I live in Connecticut, but West Greenwich, Rhode Island. Um, Kind of like a small town, I guess, vibe. Rhode Island's small state in the country. And, yeah, so I mean, that's basically if I have the money to do so. Sometimes I run late models at my local short track, do some legend car racing. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
Yeah, wonderful. So if you're not running in the truck series, or if you're not running in the Xfinity series, or if you're kind of in between races and late models, are you doing any like other racing besides that, or what do you kind of do for your day job? Kind of what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, if I'm not racing in trucks and Xfinity, with me being part-time, there's usually big gaps in between races. So there's a lot of like, I guess, free time. Usually it's just, I guess, my first job is racing and my second job is finding sponsors. So
Yeah.
I'm not racing, it's usually just sponsorship searching, or like I said, if I can run a legend race or a late model race just to keep yourself active because you might go 6 months without driving and then boom, you're in a race car at Martinsville or something or Talladega or some crazy place and it's like, man, I haven't gone 180 in 6 months. So I just try to stay fresh, do some iRacing. So yeah, that's basically what my life looks like when I'm not racing in NASCAR.
Sure, and I know we talked a little bit about it before we started recording, but just for people who are out there, because I know definitely as I was getting into it, I was curious. But why don't you? Is it is it transfer pretty well when you say that you're keeping yourself fresh and you'll do a little bit of iRacing? Do you think that that does transfer decently well into real racing? So somebody like me, where I don't have the funds to go racing at the moment, if I wanted to try to gain some experience or anything like that, is that like a useful tool? Would you say?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think if you've never raced anything before, it will definitely put you in the right track. I made the jump from bandos to late models, and bandos you just hold it wide open and go around and around. So going to late models, I spent all winter iRacing and I realized I wasn't as good as I thought. But I did iRacing all winter, and then by the time that season came around, honestly, if it wasn't for iRacing, I think I probably would have been lost. So iRacing definitely led me in the right directions. There's obviously going to be differences, but I mean, it gets you close enough to if you like have no experience, it gets you close enough to be able to get in a good car. But definitely as you start the race more, you start to notice maybe some differences, little things, but it isn't anything that big enough for me to say, yeah, don't touch it. Like it will definitely help.
Sure. Yeah, any experience is probably better than no experience when it comes to stuff like that, I would imagine. Well, what are your kind of talk to me a little bit about what are some current goals that you have for this upcoming season or next season or really life in general, anything like that, anything that you're working on, excited for, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess my goals for the rest of this year is just try to do more races. I think I've ran think it's 6 races so far this year, um, which was more than I was planning. It was originally going to be 3, so that's always good. My goal every year is just do more races than the last year. Last year I did 4, so I'm at 6, so that's good. Got another one coming up in a little bit, and hopefully some more. So I guess my goal for next year would just be, let's say I end up doing 8 races this year. My goal would be like 10, 12. Like it's just little steps. Obviously, the goal is to be full time,
Sure.
but I mean, that just comes down to a sponsor. We could sit here and be like, my goal is to run only 10 races next year, and then I'll announce in like January, I'm running all 28.
Yeah, right.
Like, so, but it's just little steps at a time, get more consistent with sponsorships. That's probably the biggest thing. So where I can go into next year knowing, okay, I'm definitely running 10 races, not, oh, I got one plan and let's hope I get some more. Like, I just kind of want a little more security.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense, and that's something I've been very curious about, and something that maybe other people would like to hear about a little bit, and go into as much detail as you can or can't. But how does that work? So I always thought, before I started talking to people more and more, you know, that at like the NASCAR National Series levels, I didn't realize that drivers are getting their sponsorships. I always thought it was teams were sponsoring, or teams were going out and getting sponsorships and sponsoring cars. But is it more drivers that are sponsored rather than teams are sponsored?
Yeah, so I mean, in Cup, I mean, it's a little more of the teams are finding sponsors. Like some for some Cup guys, it's like, okay, I'm the team owner. I have a car, I have a sponsor. All right, we got these drivers. What driver goes good with my sponsor and agrees with, right? But when you start going trucks, Xfinity, and even maybe the lower end of Cup, I'm talking like higher end when we talk about drivers getting paid. The lower ends, it's usually the driver brings a sponsor. The race teams will help and they can find stuff, but most of the time it's the drivers bringing the money. A lot of times it might be family members or it might be a company that they've kind of worked with their whole racing career that kind of just goes with them wherever they go. So it's definitely hard to bring new people in the sport. You see a lot of success where, like I said, it's either family members or sponsors that have been with them since like go-kart days and kind of just grow with them. But yeah, so to answer your question, it's mainly the driver bringing the money, unless you're like Kyle Larson or like the higher end of Cup.
Sure, like Connor Zilic is sponsored personally by Red Bull, so Red Bull will probably follow him if he goes into Cup. I know that they were
Yeah,
with him and like MX5 stuff and all that other stuff, but no,
yeah.
that's super interesting, and it feels, it's kind of crazy to me because it feels like that just puts like another unnecessary, like, racing is expensive as it is, and I know it gets really really expensive as you get into like the NASCAR National Series, but it feels like that's just so much of an added stressor to it of, for somebody who's like in your shoes where, yeah, I want to race and I know I can race and I know I can run well in this, but I got to go find another X amount of thousands or tens of thousands of dollars to try to do this.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's stressful. It doesn't matter what level you're racing at. It's like, even remember how I was saying, like, if I'm not racing in NASCAR, I go run late model races if I can. Well, late model races at this point, to run competitive is what it costs to go run what I'm running in trucks. Like, okay, I'm running like in the mid 20s in trucks, but it's like, okay, I got a late model I can go win with, or I can go run 20th in trucks. I'd rather spend my money on the trucks. And you can't find sponsors for late models because it's either on nothing or it's on Flow Racing, which, unless it's the Cars Tour, probably isn't getting more than like a couple thousand people. So all this, you need something that you can market. So it's kind of hard to run anything besides NASCAR when everything costs basically the same.
Sure. Yeah. So it's kind of a good little caveat to roll into something, kind of tied to the same thing. But how did you get discovered by these truck teams or the Xfinity teams or anything like that? Like, how did you get your foot in the door to even have the opportunity to go drive at the NASCAR National Series level?
Yeah, so well, I started in 2024, but I guess the communications with the team started back in 2019.
Wow.
2020, 2019. I get a little confused. I'm getting old, I guess. I can't
Yeah.
remember
Right.
exactly years. I used to just this is when I was younger, obviously, maybe like 16, 17. I would just, and this is before I even understood. I didn't even understand the money side of it. I thought it was someone sees you drive good and the teams are like, "Come drive my car."
That's
So
how
I
I thought it was.
so I emailed a bunch of race teams, basically saying who I was, my late model stuff, this, that, and that, would like, the drive for you, whatever, like at least an opportunity to talk to you. And from my surprise, they all responded because you got to pay to drive. So it isn't exactly how I thought it would be. With that being said, I made good contacts with Josh Reum back in, like I said, it was either 2020 or 2019. I called him, and we talked for a bit. He told me, it's gonna be X amount of money to race, and he kind of like explained to me like how this stuff works. which, I'm glad I found out from a younger age. I feel like there's a lot of guys out there who are racing, spending a lot of money in late models, thinking that they're going to get recognized when all the money they're spending in late models, they could be spending it to go run a NASCAR and they don't even know it. So, he kind of explained to me how everything works. And then, and then I told him, well, I look for sponsors and stuff. And then that was it. I didn't talk to him or anybody all the way until about 2024 when I was running late models up until 2023, and I had enough of racing late models. It kind of felt like spending money, going nowhere type of feeling, like, okay, we
Sure.
did same thing. Here we go again. I gotta go race at my local short track this year. Woohoo.
Sure.
So I kind of felt like we were stalled. So I told my girlfriend, I was like, listen, unless I don't, well, I didn't even say unless. I was just like, I think I'm done racing. I was like, just kind of it's going nowhere. Like. So I said, I think this is it, my 2023. So I ran my last race in 2023 and thought that was it. I was wrong, I guess.
Yeah, right?
So, and I know the story goes on forever. So I'm sorry if I'm
No, you're
talking too
fine.
much.
No, dude, you're
But
fine.
so so 2024 comes around, basically told my girlfriend, listen, I'm not racing unless it's on a bigger level. Like at least attempt. I was okay with on my mind if I made one NASCAR start, I could retire, be done with no regrets. Because in my mind, well, I did what I can do. Like I gave it a serious effort. I went out there on national television, blah blah blah. So we talked to some teams and they were kind of out of our price budget because right now I'm just looking at doing a one-off start and anything. And then we talked to Cars Tour team, AK Performance, and we decided to go to the Cars Tour route. So we did. So that kind of got me back into racing, I guess. In the beginning of 2024, like I think like March, because they all race down south and stuff, so it starts early. So I did Florence. We did Wilkesboro. We did practice, and it rained out. And then we did Langley. But in between that time, because my dad was helping me with the late model stuff, and this is where the story gets crazy. I was like, he's like, you know, the NASCAR stuff probably isn't going to work out. It's a lot of money, which I mean, he's not wrong. Late models are more affordable, but I was just happy to be racing against bigger stage of late models. But I reached back out to Josh and stuff, and we were talking. He said he had some races open. He said he had Lucas Oil Raceway open in Indianapolis, and there's a lot of money, obviously, that I didn't have necessarily. At least I didn't have my dad didn't want to do that stuff. So luckily Josh took a chance on me and we decided that I would go to North Carolina without telling my parents and go sign a deal and give up a good chunk of change to go racing on the national level. And the next day, because we were racing in Florence, I told my dad, I said, I drove to North Carolina on my way down here. He's like, oh, for what? I said, oh, I went to a NASCAR shop. So he's like, oh, what are you doing there? I said, and I had to tell him, my dad, I spent a little bit of money, but it's gonna work out. And honestly, it was the best decision I've ever made. And the time I was really nervous because I was like, this is probably really stupid what I just did because I just did basically a one-off race. What's gonna really happen from it? So that's how I kind of got my foot in the door. It's not hard to get in contact with these teams. These guys are very like, if you were to message them, they're gonna respond to you. Josh is gonna call you. Any of these guys are gonna give you the time of day. It just comes down to dollars and sponsorship. You need the money to be able to go race, and that's what they tell you. And I'm very appreciative of Josh telling me that at a younger age rather than me spending the next 4 years in late models racing, thinking, oh, if I win and just spend more money in late models, Rick Hendrick's gonna come down and sign
Right.
me a deal. Like it just doesn't work like that. So luckily I found out and kind of knew what I was looking for and what I kind of needed, I guess, to save up and put money aside for. So yeah. That's
Sure.
that's my crazy story. I'm sure
Dude,
that's
that
how everybody
is
else's story went.
yeah, that's wild. I mean, you basically like I mean, it's not eloping, but you kind of eloped and went and signed your life away to a race team for a race. Like that is ballsy, man. That's awesome though.
Yeah, it worked out. Like I said, in the moment, after I did it, it kind of felt like a little dumb. Like, this is probably not the best financial decision for a 20-year-old to be making at the time. But I was just like, you have your whole life to go work at the McDonald's. That's what I tell myself. So you might as
Right.
well go take the risk. And if it doesn't work out, then you can just end up like everybody else. So it's
Right. And that's what, what I've kind of kicked the tires on the idea of, okay, I'm going to go racing for, I don't know, probably 2 years now. And I mean, it's
Mhm.
always been in the back of my head. Like I said, I've been a race fan my entire life, but it's kind of something similar, like where you had to get yourself in a different mindset of don't live with the regret of not trying it. Because I was
Yeah.
laying in bed one night when I put this whole plan together in my head of, okay, if I can do this, okay, it'll take about 2 years. And the one thought where I was like, no, dude, you have to do this is if my kids came to me someday and said, Dad, what's your biggest regret? Because I have two little kids upstairs and they both love racing too. But, Dad, what's your biggest regret? I want to be able to say that I at least tried it. Like I gave it everything I had to try to follow my passion and try to go race. So to be able to hear that you kind of did the same thing with, I just have to try this just to say that I did it. I have my whole life to make up for it. It's kind of the same. That's kind of cool how that kind of
Yeah, the
similarity
way
there.
I look at it too is like, look at, I mean, I've made 6 truck starts. If let's just say right now my career ended right now and I went and just got a 9 to 5 and just lived a normal life, it would be like at least my whole life I know I raced in NASCAR. I tried. Nobody can ever take that away from me. I've raced in the Xfinity series. I've raced in trucks. I mean, it's. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
I guess
that's
when I'm 65, I could tell my grandkids about it. I'll have one of those
right.
crazy grandparent stories about how, I was racing. They'll say, "Oh, Grandpa, what are you even talking about?" But
Right. Yeah,
so
and to touch on that like sticker shock money value that it sounds like you experienced too. I was fortunate where I put out this announcement video of hey I'm going, and literally one of the first people to message me was like hey I have a late model you can come run up in I think it was Wisconsin. And I was oblivious, and I was like you, where I was like, oh, people will just pick you up and they bring the car and you get to go drive it, and that's that.
mm,
That's where before I figured out that you have to pay to drive that. And he's like, and I was like, oh, cool, dude, yeah, that'd be awesome. And he goes, yeah, it's 3 grand a race, and we run like I have like 15 or 16 races left this year. He's like, you could be up here next week racing this thing. You can have it for the rest of the season. And that's where I was like, I don't have that money to come up
yeah,
there and just start
very
racing.
and it sucks in terms of like me, even as a NASCAR guy. If I want to go run a legend car, a late model, I could be full time in NASCAR, and even if it's just like an off week, I still have to pay. I
Right.
mean, even Joey Logano said it in one of his interviews, some podcast he was on. He was like, "I wish I could run more Xfinity and truck races, but it costs so much money. Like it's just how it is. It doesn't matter who you are. Unless like you're, like I said, a Larson or someone. I mean, you want to race anything. It does not matter who you are. You have to bring money. It's just the way the sport works.
Yeah, I was talking when I was talking to Xavier in a previous episode here. That was something I said. I was like, dude, can you imagine the amount of talent and how good the sport would be if it was talent over money and not so much money over talent? Like, there's so many good racers across the country, and
The
they're buried
landscape
in the
of
local
NASCAR would look.
tracks.
I mean, you'd have your obviously people we know that would be there, but the landscape I think would look completely different. Like I don't really
100%.
recognize it if it was solely based on talent. But I mean, it's just. Like I said, I'm glad I learned it at an early age that you marketing and marketability first, then worry about your talent and driving second. Like
Sure.
this is the way it is. Just make sure that you're easy to sell, and
Right.
then then everything else comes easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. What kind of fuels your passion? So obviously you have a huge passion for the sport, and you're willing to go to any lengths to make it happen. But what fuels that passion? Like what drives you back to the track week in and week out, or waiting 6 months and still having the passion to go back and want to do it again?
I honestly don't even know. It's just
Yeah, yeah,
No, it's kind of crazy. Like I go and do all this stuff, and like it's like all like the off track stuff. I mean, like I enjoy the business side of it to an extent. It's fun when like you work hard and you close out a deal. It definitely it's just like anything else. Like even just like racing, like it's fun until it isn't, right? Like you can work hard on a sponsor deal and then they don't pay a day before the race or something. Like you come, why are you doing this? But I mean. I don't know. It's just like just when I think that I'm like, oh, maybe I'd be okay not racing anymore, and then I go out there and like, at Bristol, it's a Bristol night race in the truck, and you see all the fans in the stands, and you're coming to the green, and you think to yourself, I cannot live a normal life. Like this has to be
right.
what I have to do. Like I have to do this every week. Like,
Yeah, God, that'd be such a cool feeling. Yeah, I'm super jealous of that, man. That's awesome. I'm glad that you get to experience that though. That's super
I'm
cool.
hey, it's still like I said about a year and a half ago, I was supposed to be retired, and now here I am. So,
Yeah, right. Right. No, absolutely. So is the plan, so obviously your plan is to, run more full time, get to running full time in the trucks in the Xfinity series. But so how does that work? So you're paying with a team now. So is that where kind of the recruitment process starts, if you will, of like where you would eventually get paid to race? Because if you're
I think, and I'm still kind of learning when it comes to this stuff. Like, the way that I see people make it is that they, like I said, bring a sponsor, or you run equipment like I'm running. You're paying, you have a sponsor, and then you run for a while in these back marker things, and then someone gets hurt in a good car. Something like that happens. You get thrown in that car, you do good. The sponsors of that car that you're driving like you, and they say, hey, we want this guy to come back. So then the race team hires you to drive that race car and represent their sponsors. But you see, at the end of the day, there's still a key point, a sponsor. That's what see, so that's what it really comes down to. You could be the worst driver in the world. If you have a sponsor that loves you and is willing to pay for you, you'll stay in the sport forever. Like, it just does not matter. So, I mean, it's unfortunate, I guess, but like I said, it's better that you recognize it and accept that's the way it is, and then understand what you have to work at rather than just be like, I'm just gonna outdrive it. It just doesn't work like that. Like, it's just how it is.
sure. That completely yeah, that makes complete sense. That makes complete sense. What kind of advice would you give, and I think that there's a lot of people like me who want to get into racing, are trying to get into racing, but don't have the experience, don't have the deep pockets, don't have a family full of racers, anything like that. We're just gonna go figure it out on our own and we'll see what sticks. What kind of advice would you give to somebody like that?
Um, well, one, I came from my family had no racing background or any of that stuff, so it's gonna be more difficult because you don't have like especially once you get into racing, like help wise, like when we did late models, just me and my dad, and like, we didn't really know what we were doing. We kind of learned everything on our own, but we didn't have like 20 people to call, or like my great grandfather and my grandfather's uncle who, worked on 37 race cars, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
places to go. I guess it'd just be like when you get into it, at least like talk to everybody you can, be friends with everybody you can, because the biggest thing in racing, you need friends. You need friends, you need people on your side because you cannot be a lone wolf in this sport. You need support for like getting into it too, especially. Just make sure you line with the right people. You're probably going to run across a lot of people who are bad people, which is how it is in racing. There's shady people in every industry. And yeah, that's just how it is.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's one big benefit that I've found to this whole social media thing that I've been doing and kind of documenting my journey is the outreach and the support for it and the connections that it's helped me make. And it's helped me a ton because obviously it gives me a bunch of friends, like I talk to Chris from Penske, or I talk to the guys up at the dirt track that I help out in the pits and stuff like that. So no, most definitely. I think that I agree with that 100% is friends. Yeah, make it.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Well, what kind of sponsor shout outs do you have? Where can we find you on social media? Anything big upcoming, anything like that, or anything that we should be looking out for from Mr. Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, shout out to LA Productions. He came on my Bristol Xfinity car. Fidelity Title Company. They helped me out in Martinsville, and hopefully we'll be back for more Knott's Custom Diecast and MD Custom Diecast. So, and everybody else who's helped me, I guess, obviously through the late model years, there's like a million people. But yeah, you can follow me. It's basically just Tyler Tomassi on anything. So, except for TikTok, I was hacked on TikTok. So when you look up Tyler Tomassi, just ignore everything because I'm hacked. I'm not, and now I turned into a TikTok shop selling like pots and pans and stuff. So yeah, I can't get it back. So
Really?
unfortunately, I
Oh
tried.
no.
Will not. Um, yeah. So obviously, our next race is going to be Talladega in October 17th. In the meantime, obviously, still looking for sponsors. So we have stuff on board. You can just email me at tylertomasi@gmail.com or Instagram DM me. We have anything open like as cheap as $500 to, whatever your imagination can. There's no limit when it comes to sponsorship.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a spot for anybody, honestly, to be honest. And yeah, anything helps because, it obviously all adds up and the stuff's expensive. But yeah, so we got Talladega. We're definitely doing that no matter what. That's locked in, so no worries there. We're trying to work on maybe doing some ARCA races, just to kind of fill in the gap, and then maybe an Xfinity race. So the problem is Xfinity's tough right now because if you don't have points, you're probably in a DNQ, so it's a little tough. But yeah, so hopefully I hope that I'm not out of a race car for 3 months because I mean you're just naturally gonna be rusty. Granted, it is Talladega, so I mean you just hold it flat to the floor in qualifying, but I mean still it's just you're better off racing than not racing. You're not gonna get any better sitting on the couch. So
Yeah, absolutely,
racing
man.
it is, I guess.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Well, dude, if you ever find yourself racing around Kansas, you'll have to let me know, and I'll definitely. I mean, I'm at the track every time that all the NASCAR series are here, but
Yeah,
you'll have to
no,
let me know.
we're trying to work on the ARCA Kansas deal. So I guess I can mention that. I don't have anything locked down. I don't have nothing, but we need sponsors for that. So I mean, if anybody's interested, maybe we could put something together and make it happen. ARCA stuff is nice because it's cheaper, it's more flexible, and I can finagle deals together with less money, maybe cut some tires, maybe, do some stuff versus trucks is kind of like you need what you need. So, but yeah, Kansas Arco, we're looking at trying to do. Hopefully, put something together for that. But right now, like I said, the only confirmed thing I have 100% happening right now is Talladega. So it's a pretty good thing to have happening.
Yeah,
So
dude,
I'm upset.
that's
And we're gonna have a good shot there. We're gonna bring a good piece. So, I mean, but you know how it is. I mean, we can bring a good piece and crash on lap one, or could win the race. So it's Talladega, so anything can happen. So I'm excited for that, and hopefully, 3 months from now, I'm a NASCAR Truck Series winner.
right, dude. That'd be awesome. That would be
Yeah.
awesome. I'll be rooting for you, man. I'll have it on. I'll make sure to link all of Tyler's social media stuff, and then any of the sponsorship stuff we can link, and I can make sure to put your email there down below if you guys want to reach out to Tyler and try to put something together. And then any merchandise links, I'll link anything like that if you have merchandise. I'll make sure to link all that stuff down in the description below. But no, man, Tyler, I really do appreciate you sitting down with us and kind of pulling the curtain back a little bit because money seems to be the forbidden thing to talk about when it comes to racing or really anything in life. Nobody wants to talk about money. I really appreciate you being so open about it and the hardships of it, and but also the reward of it at the end of the day. So thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Have a good night.
Thank you.